Hi, I'm Demi Stevens, founder and CEO of Year of the Book Press and editor-in-chief of Self Pub magazine. Here in the studio today with Carl Alves, an author from our local area. And I just need to preface this with, I'm that girl who jumps when the shark comes out in Finding Nemo.
Okay.
So horror for me, I have a really low threshold.
Okay, I'm probably the opposite then. I mean, I was raised on horror movies and horror novels. So even though I write different things, I write fantasy, I write science fiction. That's really what I enjoy the most, and I identify myself the most as a horror author, even though I will definitely jump around to different genres.
Wow. When did you start writing?
I've been writing for about 12 years now. It was I kind of dabbled a little bit when I was in high school, but not very seriously. And then after I was done with college, my wife suggested that, hey, you used to write stories. You know, what happened to that? I'm like, oh, maybe I ought to start writing again. So then I kind of resurrected some ideas that I had before, and then I started taking the craft much more seriously. And I learned a lot about how to write, joined critique groups. And then also learned about the business of publishing as I went along. So the first 5 or 6 years was really getting my feet wet and trying to perfect my craft. And then the last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years, I've been published and had short stories. I've had a few novels out. So I'm more in that middle stage of my career, hoping to move forward.
Does it get easier? Because I know a lot of our viewers today are also authors or aspiring authors.
Well, writing is work. A lot of people will come up with ideas. Like my wife will come up with an idea. Hey, why don't you write about this and that? And that's the easy part. The hard part is the actual writing process. And it's like anything else. You won't be good at it unless you practice it. And you need to write a lot. You need to read a lot. And you also, I think another good thing is to have your work critiqued by others. It could be other writers, or it could be just people who are knowledgeable readers, and also critique the work of other writers. And that will help you really see, okay, you're not looking at your own work, and sometimes it's hard to have that distance with your own work. But when you see it in someone else's and you say, oh, okay, I see what's happening here, and I can avoid doing this, or this is really effective, and I can incorporate that sort of thing into my own work.
Okay, but remember back to the first time you ever shared a piece of your work with someone else. What was that like?
Well, I mean, I have very thick skin. And
You're lucky.
Yeah, so I think if you're going to be a writer, you have to have thick skin. Your work is going to get rejected countless number of times. And the few authors that have launched to superstardom, without having gone through the rejects is probably very few and far between. So you need to learn how to deal with rejection. And also, like when I have someone looking at my work, if it's a beta reader or a critiquer, and I don't really want to hear, oh, I love this. This is awesome. This is the greatest thing I've ever read. That doesn't help me at all. I want the person to say, okay, this doesn't work. You need to change this. This didn't work for me. That's the constructive criticism that's going to help my work get better. Just someone telling me that it's great, it doesn't really help much.
So I understand you have a little bit of a background in medical or bio devices or something. Do you have any medical thrillers in the future?
Well, first with my background, I have a degree in biomedical engineering. I have worked throughout my career in the pharmaceutical and medical device industry. So right now I'm an engineer with a medical device company. And so you'd think that would lend itself to a medical thriller, but I think I get enough of that in my day-to-day work life that it has no appeal to me whatsoever. So when I'm writing, I want to divorce myself from technical stuff and engineering stuff, and even my Reconquest Mother Earth, which is a science fiction. It's not what I would call hard science fiction. It's got elements of science fiction to it, and my editor at Montauk, Mara Hodges, she was actually kind of more into putting the hard science fiction stuff into it, so it helped it out a lot. but I'm not really into the technical stuff because I think I get enough of that in my day job, and I want to live in more of the fantasy world.
Push back just a little. That's awesome. So we're trying to get a little bit of the person behind the author today, because so many writers out there just imagine this, here's the writer in a little box, and 3 weeks later you emerge with a book. Tell us a little bit about your regular life. I understand you fell in love with a high school sweetheart.
That's right. So my wife, we've been together since we were in high school. We met there. We started dating, I think it was maybe around my sophomore year of high school. And we've pretty much been together ever since.
My son is 15.
Yeah, it can happen.
Right
he might be meeting his future wife. You never know.
So how does she put up with your writing habit?
Well, not easily. So it's just hard to juggle everything. It's really difficult. She works full time as well. My wife Michelle's a physician. We have 2 children. And it's never easy to balance everything. There's always so much going on. I have my day job, and I got to pick up the children. They have their activities and all this other stuff, and it's always a constant struggle, which probably forces me to become efficient. Like I hear things called like writer's block, and I don't know what that is because I don't have time for that.
Good for you.
Like I have 15-minute bursts here and there. I gotta write. Like I can't afford to not be inspired. So so it just teaches you to become a lot more efficient.
That's a tweetable right there. You could do that. You do a little Carl Alves quote. I can't afford to not be inspired. When you see that in lights. So I understand you have 2 children, boys?
Yes. Max is my older son. He just turned 11. Alex is my crazy little guy. He's 5, and they keep me on my toes all the time. They're crazy little guys. They like to wrestle, so we fight a lot at home playfully, and both really smart kids too. So really happy with how they're doing in school, and everything I do is kind of for them and for my family.
Do either of them like to read?
Yes, actually, they're both serious readers. Alex, who's 5, is like amazing how much he can read. Like he rips through like Dr. Seuss books like they're nothing. And Max, he actually read my first novel, Two for Eternity. So I kind of have like a little summer reading program for him where I incentivize the number of books that he reads. So if he reads a certain number of books, I'll get him like a prize. The grand prize is like a Wii video game that he can pick out.
That's excellent.
So and so last year he read one of my books. I don't know if these 2 are quite at the 11-year-old range. Maybe Reconquest, definitely not Bloodstreak. That's more of your NC-17 variety. So he'll have to wait till at least he's in high school.
I'll have to be 70 before I read that one. I'm sorry. So do you have any favorite authors of your own?
Sure. I started off with, like many other aspiring horror writers, Stephen King was kind of like the first writer that I gravitated to, and it still remains my favorite author to this day. I also like Robert McCammon, great author, had a chance to meet him. Graham Masterton's another great author, and there's a lot of upcoming authors that I know personally, and also I'm a big fan of, like Ronald Malfi, who did a blurb for my book Bloodstreak, and he's a terrific author.
Ooh, how did you leverage that?
I read some of his books. I met him at the World Horror Convention, and he's a great guy. He lives in Maryland, so we actually, it's kind of weird. We were at the World Horror Convention together, and I didn't realize he was from Maryland, but we were taking the same flight home.
It's a captive audience.
Right, and I was reading his book at the time that we were on the flight together, which is really weird. So I'm like, hey, so we went over some of the.
Are you stalking me? He says.
So great guy, and he gave me a blurb, and then another one that I wanted to talk about was Brett Talley, who blurbed me for Reconquest Mother Earth, and he's a terrific author. He's a super smart guy. He went to Harvard Law School. He was a speechwriter for Mitt Romney and Rob Portman, and he's working for the Attorney General's office in Alabama now. So really intelligent guy and a great writer. And, we've become pretty good friends. And so I got him to read Reconquest Mother Earth, and he really enjoyed it. And I'd love to work someday with Brett. I'd love to collaborate with him. And I like a lot of the horror and fantasy type writers.
I understand you went to an event recently where you got to meet one of my favorite authors, Charlaine Harris.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Absolutely. So it was at this past year's World Horror Convention, which took place in May. And the people who were running the convention asked me if I was interested in participating in any panels. And I said, sure. I write vampires, so that might be something that's interesting. So I didn't hear back anything. And then they released a schedule of panels. And I saw my name attached to the panel, and I did a double take when Charlaine Harris was also on the same panel. So I'm like, holy crap, So
for those who might not be familiar with her by name alone, what has she written?
So she's the author of the Sookie Stackhouse novels that the HBO television show True Blood was based off of. And she is such a nice lady too. I had a great time hanging out with her, doing the panel, talking to her afterwards. I got her to sign a couple of books for me. I gave her a copy of my Blood Street, and she's just such a nice lady. She has like kind of a grandmother quality to her. And like after we had the Stoker banquet where they give the awards for like the best horror fiction and stuff like that. And I was talking to Charlaine. And I said to her, this might be the highlight of my career, getting to do a panel with you. And she laughed and she's like, oh well, I hope you have better highlights than that.
She seems really down to
Oh,
earth.
she is. She's just such a nice lady.
Okay, so I have to ask, do you ever dream that your books will be made into a TV series like hers were?
Yes. In fact, my wife harasses me all the time asking me when one of my books is going to be turned into an HBO show because she'd like to quit her job and live off of my own income as a writer. So, yes, that would be fantastic. And if anyone here is a producer,
excellent.
These will make. Actually, I kind of really do think that my books lend themselves to a visual medium. The way I write is really visual in nature, and I kind of picture it as I'm going along. And I've been told this, by numerous people that it kind of has that quality to it that it would lend itself to screen pretty well.
We'll send you free copies to get you reading and ready to produce.
Absolutely. I'm easy to work with too.
As you can tell. Thank you so much, Carl, for joining us today. I'm excited to have met you.
Thank you.